Ever wondered what truly powers the highest highs and, well, the lowest lows of modern American ambition?
Mm.
We're not talking about simple goals here. Today, we're doing a multidimensional motive analysis, peeling back the layers on, everything from high school heroes aiming for the MLB draft
Big leagues, yeah.
to the raw core emotions fueling our most intense cultural clashes. If you want that mental shortcut to understanding the real engine of motive, you gotta stick around.
Absolutely.
You are brilliant listeners. You are the core of this Kaizen deep dive. So do us a solid, hit that follow button right now.
We're charting some really complex, sometimes contradictory desires of contemporary life today.
Definitely.
And the source stack is fascinating. We've got elite athlete profiles. I mean, total obsession with statistical perfection.
Right.
All the way to comment threads that just expose the rawest political, social, and personal motivations. It's quite a ride, psychologically.
It really is.
And just to show the contrast right up front, while we dive deep into all this data, we have to remember that the sources also contain these hints, these mentions of massive, unelaborated events.
Like what?
Like the mention of a Meadow Country Club shooting. Just dropped in there. It's a stark reminder that sometimes the most significant motivations, the biggest stories, they often remain completely unquantified, untold.
Wow. Okay. That sets a serious tone. Let's start with the quantifiable side then. Let's unpack this with a subject that illustrates motivation pushed to its absolute data-driven limit. The case of Hunter Nadeau.
Right, Nadeau.
So when we analyze the source material from Perfect Game USA, what we see is Nadeau identified as this highly ranked baseball prospect. He's in the high school class of 2030.
Class of 2030. So what, an 8th grader?
Okay.
Maybe a freshman?
Exactly. And he's already being treated like an investment portfolio years before he can even legally buy a lottery ticket.
Yeah, and the case here, it's purely motivational, isn't it? It's the ambition of a generation that basically grew up with Moneyball as their bedtime story.
Ha, good point.
His journey towards professional baseball, it's rigorous, it's measurable. It isn't driven by just, general enthusiasm. I love baseball. No. It's driven by the need to optimize every single micro-performance metric. His motivation is quantifiable to an absolutely insane degree.
And it's supported, right, by this whole industrial ecosystem built just to validate and track that ambition.
Precisely.
So Nadeau's motivation, it's visible in the structure that's all around him. When we say he's highly ranked, we mean he's visible on ranking systems that cover high school classes from 2026 all the way out to 2030.
It's constant evaluation.
Constant. He is part of this ongoing evaluation process that, it never sleeps. The motive isn't just about playing the game, it's about navigating this market of opportunity.
That's a crucial distinction.
Yeah.
It really is. The motivation for players at this level is participation for exposure. That's the key.
Okay.
The source material, it shows us the industry provides live game coverage, video highlights, advanced statistics, and you have to ask why.
Right, why all the effort?
Because the goal, explicitly stated sometimes, is to wow more coaches, scouts, and recruiters for maximum impact. His ambition, his drive, it's completely tied up with maximizing his market visibility, turning potential into, a measurable commodity.
Wow. Okay, let's get into the weeds then of how this ambition is measured, because this is where we find those psychological nuggets, right? Forget the simple stats, games played, at-bats, runs scored, GABR. Those are just, outputs.
Surface level.
Exactly. The real motive, it seems, is found when you analyze the intent.
Nailed it. If you want to understand the true depth of this modern athletic motivation, you basically have to subscribe to the advanced statistics that the source material mentions.
Okay.
This is where motivation stops being just a feeling like, I want to be good, and it becomes this complex engineering problem.
An engineering problem. I like that. Okay. Take on-base plus slugging, OPS. We don't need to, recite the whole long formula here.
Probably best not.
Yeah, but the concept itself is vital. It combines two different views of offensive performance, right?
Right. Getting on base, which takes discipline, patience, a good eye, and hitting for power, which relies on aggression, strength, mechanics.
So a high OPS reveals a player whose motivation is kind of balanced. They want to be productive through patience and through aggression.
Exactly. It shows a dual drive.
Yeah.
But that's just a foundational advanced metric. The sources go deeper. They move on to metrics that really try to reveal intent and skill nuance.
Like what? Give us an example.
Okay, isolated power, or ISO. This basically tells you how often a player hits for extra bases, doubles, triples, home runs.
Ah, okay.
So a player motivated by ISO, they're actively trying to drive the ball past the defense. It's pure, raw power ambition quantified.
Gotcha. Power. Then there's batting average on balls in play, or baby P. Now, this one's fascinating from a motivational angle.
It really is.
Because it attempts to remove the influence of luck in defense, doesn't it? It measures how often a player gets a hit when they actually put the ball in play.
Right. Stripping away strikeouts, walks, home runs sometimes, depending on the calculation, and fielder errors.
So the motivation behind focusing on a high bat-by is the desire to eliminate randomness.
I think so. It's like a player striving for control over chaos, trying to consistently make effective contact no matter where the defense happens to be positioned. It's about repeatable skill.
Control over chaos. I like that framing.
And we can drill down even further into the mechanics of motive through the swing metrics. These are measures of pure discipline versus aggression.
Okay, lay them out for us.
All right, you've got SW% or swing percentage. Simply, how often do you swing at pitches?
Okay, high swing rate equals aggressive motivation.
Generally, yeah. Then there's WHIF%, whiff percentage. How often do you swing and miss?
Ah, so a low whiff rate shows motivation for contact mastery, putting the bat on the ball.
Precisely. And then you have B%, ball percentage, and S%, strike percentage. This gets at pitch recognition, the motivation to only offer at pitches you can actually handle, pitches in the strike zone or ones you can drive.
You know, these aren't just numbers floating in space, folks. When you think about it, like if a player's WHI% suddenly spikes, that could suggest a psychological pressure point, right? A breakdown in confidence, maybe a change in approach that isn't working. These stats are almost like a blueprint of the athlete's mental state at the plate.
Absolutely. It's performance anxiety made visible through data.
So the final layer here in analyzing Nadeau's motive is recognizing this massive infrastructure that supports this hyper-specific ambition.
Right. It's not just about the kid. It's the whole industry around him that makes his motivation possible and, frankly, profitable for some.
We see rankings for practically every age group. Travel team rankings run from 9U national 9-year-olds all the way up to 18U national.
It's a relentless, decade-long ladder of competition, just constantly climbing or trying to.
And the motivation is just baked right into the system. If you want to climb the draft boards, like the source mentions, the final 2025 MLB draft board, top 500, you have to compete in the system. There's almost no other way at that elite level.
And let's not overlook that premium skills video offered by the organization. Remember that phrase?
Right. The goal stated is to wow more coaches, scouts, and recruiters.
Exactly. The motivation is explicitly, unashamedly, to maximize exposure, using sophisticated video analysis data points, all packaged up to make the player's ambition look like an irresistible product for colleges and pro scouts.
It's intense. Okay, Kaizen listeners, here is where you weigh in. We just went through, I don't know, dozens of metrics here.
A lot of alphabet soup, yeah.
If you had to pick just one stat, one abbreviation that you think best summarizes Hunter Nadeau's motivation, his drive for control, maybe, or power, or discipline, which one would it be?
ISO for power. That is for control. WHI% for contact.
Yeah, pick one. Write that abbreviation in the comments right now. We really want to see what stands out to you in all this data.
Okay, now buckle up.
Uh-oh. Why?
Because we are about to execute the most dramatic thematic shift in this entire deep dive.
Okay.
We are moving from the hyper-rational, statistically optimized motivation of elite sports, where every tiny data point is tracked,
Right, like Nadeau's world,
to the raw, visceral, emotional engines driving America's cultural conflicts, where data is often, let's be honest, discarded entirely in favor of narrative.
Wow. Yeah. That is a shift. The contrast is really striking, isn't it?
It is. If Hunter Nadeau's motive is defined by this quest for control through data, the motive driving these political comment threads we looked at seems to be the quest for coherence through narrative, finding a story that makes sense of the chaos.
Coherence through narrative. Explain that a bit more.
Well, when extreme events happen, people are deeply motivated, almost subconsciously sometimes, to supply explanations that confirm their deepest ideological fears, their existing worldview.
Okay, so let's dive into the source material here. It plunges us into these immediate, intense reactions to the assassination of Charlie Kirk, found in a long comment thread.
Yeah, and what's fascinating, analytically speaking, is how quickly the motive analysis bypasses any kind of simple criminal intent.
Right.
And leaps straight into these really complex, multi-layered conspiracy theories.
It's like the simplest explanation is the least satisfying one.
Exactly. That's the motive of ideological confirmation bias, hard at work. The sources reveal this profound need people have to frame the tragedy not as some isolated random incident, but as definitive proof of an existing hidden war they already believed was happening.
Okay, let's break down the types of motives the sources showed. Start with the conspiracy motives.
All right. So users in the threads are circulating narratives suggesting the victim was, and I'm quoting here, assassinated by the deep state and/or a foreign enemy.
Heavy stuff. Any specifics mentioned?
Oh, yeah. Highly specific, intense accusations, mentioning the possibility of Mossad involvement, with the alleged reason being that Kirk was supposedly about to turn on Israel.
And specific users are pushing this.
Yeah, the sources name users like Shane S. and Chrissy Blinky Great as actively promoting this particular idea.
So the motive there,
Right.
What is the need for a big, powerful enemy?
I think so. An enemy that's both powerful and shadowy. It makes the vulnerability exposed by the event seem less random, maybe? More like part of a grand, albeit sinister, controlled strategy rather than just chaotic violence. It imposes an order, even if it's a terrifying one.
Okay. Then you have what the outline called ideological motives.
Right. This casts the event as the direct culmination of perceived left-wing extremism.
So.
Statements in the source suggest the perpetrators were, quote, built by the party to kill, that they were brainwashed by schools and tech companies,
Wow.
and influenced by figures who are, again, quoting, literally screaming at them every day to kill them all.
And who's articulating this view?
Users identified as Bert TC and Eudisters Dice, among others. The motive driving this perspective seems to be viewing the assassination as a predictable, almost inevitable consequence of political rhetoric they oppose.
So it validates their existing political paranoia.
It seems to function that way, yeah. A powerful motivation to confirm those fears.
And the outline mentioned a specific trans-war motive.
Yes. This was another distinct thread in the source comments. The firm belief reported is that this event is part of a deliberate conflict where malleable, impressionable, mentally ill people, their words are groomed into murderers by the left.
That's a very specific and serious accusation.
Extremely. And the conviction behind it appears so strong that some users, like Liz Lam and Christy Blinky the Great, even commented that the reported text from the assassin sounded, quote, fake as feck, like dialogue from really bad /fic.
Implying what? That it was all fabricated or staged?
That seems to be the implication, yeah.
Yeah.
The motive here appears to be connecting broader social anxieties, specifically around gender politics, directly to political violence. It creates a single, very emotionally resonant villain.
So whether it's deep state, ideological extremism, or this trans war idea, is there a common thread in the motivation behind these narratives?
I think the common thread is the motive to reduce fear by creating a clear, identifiable enemy. It's paradoxical, maybe. If the source of the violence is some vast, organized conspiracy, deep state, big tech, whatever, then the commenter, by understanding it or believing they understand it, gains this feeling of intellectual superiority, maybe even preparedness, even if the narratives themselves are completely unsubstantiated by external facts. It makes the scary world feel, ironically, a bit more manageable because it has rules, even if they're nefarious ones.
Interesting psychological angle. Now, we also see this intense projection of motive applied not just to tragedy, but also to what some perceive as victories in the culture war.
Right, the reaction to Jimmy Kimmel losing his show.
Yeah. For some users in the source material, this wasn't just, a network business decision. It was equated to, quote, an act of war.
Sources like Diogenes and Max Power use that exact phrase, act of war.
So the motive behind celebrating this or aggressively defending the cancellation, what is it perceived as?
It's framed as a need for accountability. Accountability for what they view as, quote, propaganda as a comedy routine. That phrase came from a user named Dr. Claw.
Propaganda as comedy.
So it highlights the motive of retribution. These commenters seem motivated by a desire to see consequences for public figures they believe have actively harmed their cultural interests or values. Payback.
Now, what's fascinating here, and this requires our careful neutral analysis, is the rapid internal debate that the sources capture about how the media is supposedly handling both events, Kirk's assassination and Kimmel's cancellation.
Yeah, that was interesting. Users like Wally and retired Buckeye Cop, they point out what they allege is media panic.
How so?
They suggest that maybe initial reactions, perhaps even quiet celebrations of Kirk's death in some circles, went over poorly. The source used the rather crude phrase, like a turd in a punch bowl.
Okay, attributed to the source, of course.
Absolutely. And now these users claim the media is frantically trying to, quote, pin it on Maggier, while simultaneously worrying that Kimmel's cancellation might be a, quote, setback for the furry community. Which seems like a very strange juxtaposition of concerns.
It does. So what's the motive behind that kind of commentary, analyzing the analyzers?
I think it's the motive of strategic signaling. They're analyzing in real time the effectiveness or perceived hypocrisy of the opposing side's messaging.
Okay.
They seem motivated to expose these perceived contradictions, seeing every public event, every media reaction as just another battleground for narrative dominance. Who's winning the story war?
Right. Okay, this brings us to a really crucial analytical point for you, our amazing Kaizen listeners. When you look at these extreme statements we've sourced, and remember, we're reporting what the sources say.
Very important distinction.
People apparently justifying a murder in one breath while declaring that canceling a TV show is an act of war in the next. Do these reactions reflect a motive of genuine, uncontrolled emotional grief and anger? Or is it primarily a motive of strategic ideological signaling, maybe aimed at shock value?
Good question. Is it raw emotion or calculated performance?
Yeah. What's driving these explosive claims? We want your analytical assessment. Write G for grief anger or write S for signaling in the comments. Let us know what you think the primary motive is there.
All right. Let's shift gears dramatically again.
Okay, where are we going now?
We're moving away from the extremes, the extreme data of sports, the extreme fury of politics, and we're going to look at the constructive, the positive, the deeply pragmatic motives that drive commitment in personal life.
Ah, okay. Like hobbies, community, self-sufficiency.
Exactly.
Okay.
Things that require just as much dedication in their own way as maybe an elite baseball career, but come from a different place.
This is where we often see that resilience, maybe the American spirit shining through, right? We're looking at people motivated by mastering real, tangible skills and building real, tangible community.
That's a good way to put it.
So first up, we analyze discussions around something called the TX MOME. I believe that stands for Texas Momics or Texas MOME.
Right. And this isn't just some casual get-together. The sources reveal a really intense motive for communal gathering and practical skill development.
What are the motives cited? What drives people to this?
They're powerful, actually. Things like seeing family again, that sense of chosen family, enjoying the camaraderie and, interestingly, the intelligence of the community, and absorbing practical skills.
Who talked about this?
Teachers like Gunslinger and Ben had. They emphasize this crucial, recurring reunion dynamic. It really highlights that deep human motive for belonging, doesn't it?
Definitely. Finding a safe space, an intelligent community that shares your values and reinforces your goals, especially around self-reliance.
And that belonging, it translates directly into a powerful hobbying motive, centered on competence and precision, specifically around gun collecting and shooting.
And the discussions aren't just generic, I like guns, right? They're highly technical.
Oh, extremely. The commitment is evident in the specific gear they discuss. We're talking the Ruger-Old Army, the Colt Peacemaker Army, the Henry .357 lever action.
Classics.
Right? But also high-level modern platforms like AR-10s and the M1 Grand End. And the source even notes the discussion of a Colt Peacemaker as a $2,300 expenditure.
Wow. So this isn't a cheap hobby. It's a serious investment.
Exactly. An intellectual and financial investment, seemingly driven by a motive for mastery, for historical appreciation, maybe even for craftsmanship.
And what about the calibers used? The sources mentioned Toby 928, Alberta Oil Peon, and Rick B223 contributing to that discussion.
Yeah, and the answer they landed on was almost rhetorical. All of them, yes.
Meaning what? They want to be proficient with everything.
That seems to be the reflection. The motive appears to be comprehensive skill acquisition, ensuring competence across various platforms, various calibers. It speaks to dedication towards resilience, self-sufficiency, preparedness. It's serious stuff.
Okay. Moving from practical skills to intellectual pursuits, the reading threads.
Yes. Here we find a really powerful motive for intellectual exploration, but interestingly, it's often intrinsically linked to a sense of cultural self-defense.
How so?
People seem to be actively seeking out historical knowledge, theological insights, specific genre knowledge, partly to avoid what they perceive as the corruption of modern political bias in newer works.
What kind of stuff are they reading?
It's rigorous reading. The sources mention Andrew Gordon's The Rules of the Game, Jutland. That's a dense work of naval strategy and history from World War I.
Wow.
Classics like Charles Dickens. And modern but established genre fiction like Larry Niven's sci-fi novel, The Goliath Stone. This is serious reading, not just light beach reads.
And the motives for reading older literature specifically, were they stated?
Very clearly, yeah. By users like Mark Andrew Edwards and Euhistor's Dice,
Yeah.
basically. To avoid modern political bias, to find books that are not, quote, woke or terrible, and to seek out what they consider superb American writing that they feel rivals global classics.
So the motivation is partly quality control, partly cultural preservation.
I think that sums it up well. And this leads directly into what the outline called the anti-woke motive in fiction, which seems to be a significant factor driving reading choices for some in these threads.
Okay, explain that.
The frustration, cited by users like Wolfus Aurelius and Professor Squirrel, is with what they see as writers imposing modern culture on that time and place, rewriting history in the process.
Do they give an example?
A very specific anecdote was provided in the source material.
Yeah.
Annoyance with finding a trans romance subplot included in a horror novel set in 1920s Appalachia.
Okay. And their objection wasn't the genre blend, but the perceived historical anachronism or agenda.
Exactly. The belief expressed was that this kind of insertion is done, quote, simply because they can, and to rub it in normies' faces.
So the motive is cultural defense again. Rejecting fiction they feel compromises historical integrity or pushes a modern political message they disagree with.
That seems to be the core motivation expressed, seeking a kind of purity, maybe, in their entertainment and intellectual engagement.
Okay. Let's shift to self-sufficiency again, but in a very hands-on way. Home repair.
Yeah, and this motive for self-sufficiency, it extends far beyond just hobbies or reading. It's woven into daily life, particularly in home repair, and the discussions we saw were, well, frankly, they were mechanical masterpieces.
Like what?
Okay, take the discussion involving a user named Mike Hammer about repairing a Cutlass Calais, an old GM car. The detailed plan wasn't just fixing something small. It was converting the engine, swapping out the original Chevy 305 for a bigger Oldsmobile 403 engine.
That is not simple maintenance. That's a major project.
Huge. And the level of detail required that was discussed? Things like having to cut and braze, not weld, braze a dipstick tube from a scrap 4L80E transmission onto a TH350 tube just so it would fit the bell housing bolt on the old engine block.
Wow. I mean, the dedication there.
It demonstrates an incredible motive for self-reliance, right? Technical mastery over the machine, actively resisting reliance on expensive mechanics. I can figure this out. I can do this.
That's impressive. And this practicality, this drive, it extends even to location motives, where people choose to live.
Seems so. People making massive life changes driven by the desire for specific experiences, specific environments. We saw a discussion about people moving to Indiana, specifically seeking 4 seasons again.
Even though that means dealing with real winter.
Exactly. They accept the trade-offs. Wolfus Aurelius and FD discussed this very trade-off in the source thread. They acknowledged that the initial, quiet, pristine beauty of a fresh snowfall.
Yeah, it's lovely for about a day.
Right. It quickly devolves into, quote, gray-black frozen muck by day 2. Yet the motivation to seek that specific lifestyle balance, a full climatic cycle, the experience of 4 distinct seasons, it outweighs the practical inconvenience of shoveling snow and dealing with slush.
That's a powerful motive, choosing a whole climate.
It really is.
Okay, finally, amidst all this, the high-tech stats, the political fury, the hardcore hobbies, the engine swaps, we need to acknowledge a foundational, maybe more enduring motive that underpins a lot of American society.
Right, the motive for opportunity through more traditional channels.
Yeah. Even alongside discussions of conspiracy theories and brazing dipstick tubes, the sources also provided a simple reminder of basic academic ambition.
Which was what?
We noted the public announcements of the fall 2024 and spring 2025, deans and merit lists at Bunker Hill Community College in Massachusetts, covered both the Charlestown and Chelsea campuses.
Ah, okay. Simple academic achievement.
Exactly. It kind of quietly anchors our whole analysis, doesn't it? It serves as this necessary reminder that for many, many people, the core motive remains foundational. It's hard work, it's academic achievement, seeking recognition for that work, and pursuing a practical path to maybe a better life through education. That drive is still very much alive.
A really important grounding point.
Absolutely. Okay, wow, what a journey, Kaizen listeners.
Seriously, we covered a lot of ground.
We started by looking at Hunter Nadeau's incredibly quantifiable motivation on the baseball diamond, his drive for optimization down to the ground out air outreach.
The OAO, yep, that level of detail.
And we ended up navigating the raw emotional engines driving cultural warfare, deep personal passions like gunsmithing or engine building, and even the quiet pursuit of academic opportunity. It really drives home the point. Motivation isn't some single switch you flip.
No, it's much more like a complicated, multi-layered dashboard of factors, different lights blinking at different times for different reasons.
Yeah, a dashboard. I like that metaphor.
And if we try to connect this all to the bigger picture, whether you're trying to analyze a highly ranked prospect like Hunter Nadeau based on his desire to control his baby P, or you're trying to understand the extreme political statements found in those comment threads, the lesson seems pretty clear.
Which is?
Every action, really. From the sublime dedication of a mechanic carefully brazing a tiny metal tube, to the destructive rhetoric sometimes found in conspiracy threads. It all stems from a deep, often maybe irrational belief system.
Okay.
And that system, that internal dashboard, it dictates what success looks like, what coherence feels like, what competence means to that person or group.
So we saw intense motivation to control the narrative in the political sphere.
Definitely.
We saw extreme motivation to control performance data in the athlete market.
Right down to the decimal point.
But here's what's truly fascinating, maybe even a little chilling as we wrap up. Amidst all this data we analyzed, all the commentary we parsed, the sources also confirm the existence of a major, completely unelaborated event, that Sky Meadow Country Club shooting you mentioned at the start.
Yeah, it's just sitting there in the source list. A headline, nothing more.
Think about that. We had incredibly detailed stats on a high schooler's whiff percentage. We had minute quote-my-quote analysis of form conspiracy theories. Yet this major real-world event involving violence sits in our source material almost completely devoid of context or analysis from those same sources.
So what critical motivation aren't we seeing? What story isn't being told because, for whatever reason, the details weren't supplied or focused on in the material we had?
What drives an unknown story, one hidden in the shadows of the data we obsessively track and the narratives we endlessly debate? We have the information that it happened. Now, the motivation, maybe, is to dig deeper elsewhere.
Keep seeking that knowledge.
Exactly. Because you are brilliant listeners. You are the ones asking the important questions. If you want us to keep exploring these deep, complex motives and maybe the untold stories they hide, pause this right now and write N for motivation in the comments.
And if you're feeling satisfied with this dive, if we hit the mark, write Y for yes.
Let us know.
Yeah, let us know. And please don't forget to follow the Kaizen channel immediately. It helps us keep doing these deep dives.
We'll see you next time.
See you next time for the next deep dive.